So I guess, can you guys, why don't you guys just all move to the side of the room? Since it's going to be like, sit over here, yeah. It's a little better, okay, cool. Alright, so I'm Eileen, if you haven't met me yet. I am one of the four. This is it's 4 plus because we're all graduating in like a week. But this is the very last talk of the very last conference of the year, and I'm honored to be giving this presentation. And like every Eileen story, our story starts at another store. So, this is the Pines Resort. This is the Pines Resort. The Pines Resort is where we have our retreat every year. And for the new incoming ones, you'll see how it is June of next year. And for the med students, if you choose to come, you'll figure out the secrets that we do there, because we can't really talk about it. But one thing that we do is we roast. We roast all the graduating 4th years. So, this was mine. So, the residency band will get together, and we will roast basically all the graduating 4s. And of course, they chose the photo picture, so come to Vaganza, you know. And of course, they chose Come On Eileen. And this was my song. I'm not going to let you guys read all of it, but this is what I want to focus on. So, forget the prostate part. We're not going to talk about that. Not the prostate. But the 2-way, 3-way, 4-way fire trip. Like, what is that all about? Like, why am I always doing these 2, 3, 4, 5-way trips? Like, why? So, here's some, I looked in my inbox, because, I mean, it was noteworthy enough to end up in my song, so people noticed. So, I looked in my inbox, and I found this guy. Victoria Banzler Scotland, found this guy. And this is a very special one. This is like a 7-way trade that I managed, where Owens took 3 of my shifts, and then Nelson took 1 of Owen's shifts, and I took 2 of Owen's shifts, and 1 of Diamond's shifts, and this is how this worked out. And the most recent one was actually last month. So this was Nate Garman. And Nate Garman and Timmy were very nice to get me out of my shift on the 20th and the 19th, and anyway, on the of this month. And actually, what you don't see in this email is that texts and switches have already happened to get me actually out of the 21st shift. And then after this email, Lily Hitchner traded a shift with me so that I would have 2 extra hours. So I was post-conference and she was just sweet. So, what's the deal? Right? Like, why am I honestly always making these 7,000 million way trades? Like, why, right? And it's because I have found something that I am extremely passionate about, and that I would like to share with you guys today, because it is the most important part of me. And I think some of you who have known me for some time do know this about me, but other people do not. But I have found something that is so important to me, so close to my heart, and it is the core of who I am. So I want to share that with you guys. So, what was I doing on July 21st? This was what I was doing. So at July 21st in 2018 at 11:30, I was standing there in Lancaster doing something. And a la Eileen style, we will have to go to another store before we come back in. All right? So, way back in the beginning, there was 1 month old me. This is me. This is my sister at probably 2 years, because there's 2 candles. I can't tell the size of these. I always ask mom, like, how old is your baby? So this is my dad holding my sister Amy, my mom holding me, and then another picture of my sister is either hugging me or strangling me, and it's a little unclear. And that was then, and this is now. So this is my family. This is my family serving God together. And I want to tell you about each member of my family. So this is my very cute and joyful dad, Joseph. And my dad, when he was in 1997, he was working at Epson. He was working at Epson as a manager. He has a PhD in electrical engineering. And he was making about a 6-figure salary. We were living in the Bay Area. And he heard God call him to quit his job and go follow him. And God told him that if he did this, then he would take him on adventures around the world. And so my dad prayed and he discerned that, yes, he was going to do this. And with my mom's consent, and I was 10 and my sister was 12 at the time, with our consent, my dad quit his job, and he has been serving the Lord. So this is my same dad who, in 2004, having accepted an invitation to serve a church in China in 2003, in 2004 was SARS. So in SARS, in the height of SARS, my dad, because he's a man of God and he keeps his word, he went to China. And when he went to China, he got on the airplane, the stewardess called them nuts. You know, well, not the stewardess because she's on the plane too, but you know, the people who are giving out the tickets. And my dad and his 2 servants got on the plane. And when they got to Beijing airport, they said that it was like creepy. It was so empty. I mean, like China's just full of people, like it was creepy empty. And when they got picked up, my dad, when he tells me this story, he tells me that it was like the Red Sea was parting because they were actually closing all of Beijing. So they were closing all of Beijing. They were closing, like quarantining everything because of SARS and not letting people through. And for whatever reason, the car that my dad was in, every checkpoint they just let him through. Every checkpoint they let him through, and they would either close it like right before but let him through, or close it afterwards. And this is my same dad who, when it was time to finish that ministry trip, and he came back to the United States, even though every single flight before his flight was canceled for a week, and every single flight after for a week was canceled, his flight was on time, and he brought him home to us because God told him that he would come. This is my dad. And my dad has been faithfully serving the Lord since 1997. And this is my mom. This is my mom, Rosa. We have very similar personality for those of you who have had the pleasure of meeting her before. She talks like me. But this is my mom who, in 1997, when my dad wanted to quit his job, he prayed, discerned, and then he spoke to my mom about it. Because he knew, as the head of our household, as my father, as her husband, that he would need to provide for our family. And at the time, he was making that six-figure job that was 2/3 of our family salary. So that was, we were in the Bay Area. We had a Bay Area mortgage, they had 2 kids, one 10, one 12, who wanted to go to college, one who went to med school eventually. And so my mom, at the time when my dad first said it, she said, joyfully, she said yes. And she said yes, but then something small happened later, like it had to do with money, and she was a little concerned. So she told my dad, I'm not sure this is a good idea. This is about a week or 2 later. And she said, I don't think this is a good idea. And so my dad, in his patience, kindness, and wisdom, he just said, okay, well, I won't bring this up again when you're ready. He was heartbroken, he shared later, but when you're ready, then you come talk to me and we'll decide. The very next day at church, the sermon that was preached at church was from Matthew 6, in verse 33, that says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be given you besides. And so, in that passage, right before that verse, there's the verses that God talks about how he dresses, he feeds the birds in the air, he dresses the flowers, and even they are more glorious than Solomon, and how he always provides. And so my mom heard in her heart the Lord speak to her saying, have you ever lacked for food? Have you ever lacked for water or shelter or clothing? And so that very same day, she consented and told my dad that she was joyfully 100% in, and that's when he quit his job. And this is my mom who, 2009, the same year that I graduated college and went to med school, the same year that she stopped working for a salary in the world. She was a manager at Yahoo doing computer science and computer programming and stuff. And so she quit as well. Or she got laid off, but then she didn't look for another job. And she decided that she also wanted to serve the Lord full time like my dad. So she did that. And that was the year that I graduated. I mean, we all know that med school is not cheap. But I will say, I stand here today, that God has completely provided everything that my family has ever needed, despite what it looks like, the circumstances. And we have never lacked for anything. In fact, we've had an overabundance of everything. And this is my sister Amy, who is one of my best friends, pretty much my best friend. We're very, very close. If you've met her, we have very similar mannerisms. In fact, some people at her church can't really tell us apart that well. But it wasn't always the case. Our relationship wasn't always this good. So my sister, when I went to med school in New York, so she was living in New York at a time as well. And when she was living in New York, because of how New York is, she became an alcoholic. And she was not aware that she was an alcoholic because it was what everyone else did. So there's liquor stores in every corner, this bar, you have mimosas with brunch. This is how it is in New York. So she didn't realize that she was an alcoholic, but at that point in her life, she could easily drink a whole bottle of wine by herself in her apartment at night. No problem. And she thought she didn't have a problem because she got to work on time, she had a salary job, she still managed to maintain friends and all those things. And then when the Lord started to work in her heart, he started to stir in her heart, and she started to want to know God more and want to live her life in. And so at that point, she realized she was an alcoholic and said, okay, I need to stop this. So everything in her power she did. She tried to cold turkey, she tried to live herself, she tried all the things, and she just wasn't able to stop. She wasn't able to stop. It was out of her control. And so one day when she was walking home from the subway, she heard the voice of the Lord speak to her heart. And he said, do you love alcohol or do you love me? And in that same chapter, in Matthew chapter 6, earlier it says you cannot serve both God and mammon, money. And so we can't have two lords in our heart. And so she, knowing that it was completely out of her control, completely out of what she could at all control or decide not to do anymore, she just started weeping and saying, Lord, I choose you, I want you, but I don't know how to choose you. I don't know how to give this to you. I don't know how to quit drinking. And it's by the grace of God, without AA, without disulfiram, without any medications or medical treatment, from that day on, she never touched a drop of alcohol. And this is me. And so I think for those of you who have met me maybe a long time ago, you kind of know the story. But for those of you who are new, I was in med school in New York. I was there 2009 to 2014. So 2009 to 2013, I was extremely depressed. And I think looking at me now, you cannot tell that I used to be depressed. You know, and like I think I've told this story before and somebody said, I don't believe you. Like there's no way. But let me just tell you about my depression. When I was in New York, there were times when I would sleep for 16 hours a day. And then when I woke up, the very first thought in my mind was, let me just sleep for half an hour more, or 2 hours more, because I cannot be awake. I cannot think about my life. Or I would binge watch TV shows just not to think about what's going on in my life. And also, during that time, I would weep for no reason. You know, I would just weep. And I thought all the time about killing myself. All the time. It was a constant barrage of thought in my mind. Like, you are worthless. You aren't worth anything. You just kill yourself. And for me, I knew that it would hurt my family who clearly loves me so much, you know, and would hurt Jesus because I did grow up in the Lord, and I knew that that would hurt him. So I did it, but that didn't stop me from thinking, you know, what we call passive suicide addiction. So I would walk down the street and be like, if a bus hit me right now, how wonderful would that be? If something fell from the roof and hit me on the head, and I ended up hospitalized and unconscious and not myself, how wonderful would that be? And that's how I was living. And on September 10th, my birthday in 2013, I was doing a sub-I in San Francisco. And kind of like my sister, I was a semi-functional depressed person where I could just put on a smiling face in front of other people, but there was really just this emptiness and this hopelessness. And on September 10th, 2013, I was in San Francisco. Literally, like, if you guys know SF, it's like 2 blocks away from every pho place, right? Like, no matter where you are. And I did not leave my apartment on my birthday to even get pho because I did not have the energy to get out of bed. I got out of bed probably twice that day. Once to go to the bathroom and once to make instant noodles. And I spent the whole day in bed. And so, my caring parents, who were praying for me, who cared deeply about me, who care still deeply about me, they were praying for me, and they came to see me in San Francisco. And my dad said, why don't you read the Bible with me? Why don't we have Bible study? And because I love my dad, I said, okay. And so, for a 7-day period in the end of September, we read the Bible together. And just like my sister, who in one day, this whole alcoholism thing went away, for me on October 1st, 2013, I'm this person. So no medication, no lobotomy, nothing. I am this person. I am this person because the Lord God healed me. And he didn't just heal, so brings us to what we're doing here on July 21st. So on July 21st, this is the church that I go to in Lancaster. And one of the reasons why I'm moving there, actually, I know there's like a bad picture with side eye, but that's the only picture I got. So I was standing in front of the church giving my testimony, saying this very thing that I'm telling you guys right now. And God has led me to so many places around the world just to do this. So the thing that is so important to me, and when I do these trade shifts, I don't mass email like, who can take this shift? Like, anyone who's ever been a part of my trade shifts knows that I literally spend an hour sitting in front of like shift admin and look at, I know who's on vacation, I know who's off service, I look at all those things, I look who's available, I know who's working swing that day, who's working the night before, who's working the day after. I spend an hour on this because this is important to me. And I will look, and when I ask them to take my shift, I will not only ask them to take my shift, but I will give them 5 options that I can take one of their shifts back. Because this is important. And God not only wanted to save me and my sister separately, but our relationship. Because when we were in New York, there was a period where I was living with him after I got back from Peru. And it was a pretty bad time. My sister and I are so close for anyone who's seen us together. Leanne's smiling because she knows. But at the time, we were so miserable. Her because she was an alcoholic, me because I was depressed. that we would get in these really terrible fights, and we just couldn't even stand each other anymore, to the point where one time she told me to leave. She actually told me to leave her house because it was enough and we couldn't stand each other. And this is the same sister that now lives here. And this is where we're at. This is Northern. This is my church, and this is my parents' house. And she lives here, and she's so excited that I'm moving in with her next week when I go to Lancaster and the Valley, that she sent me this text yesterday. And like, no one has ever been more excited about anything than me, but my sister is so excited. And furthermore, whenever, this is her house that she pays the mortgage for, that she pays everything for, that she's not asking me to pay rent for, okay? This is her house. But the last week when we've talked on the phone, she keeps calling it our house. This is my sister. And this is my sister. That we like to, so this is my house, but this is my still, and we just got us completely into a relationship. So why am I telling all of this? I am telling you all of this because I know that I am who I am by the grace of God. And I know that the joy within me is the strength of the Lord. And that it makes me a better doctor. That I would not be the same person, I would not be a good doctor if I didn't have what was in me, which is the Holy Spirit. And yeah, I mean, I can remember lots of places in residency when I did things that I didn't necessarily want to do. So I know something that we kind of don't like to do maybe in Red Zone is when somebody dies and you think you'll give the family the news, and it sucks because we don't like it and they don't like it, and then you're stuck there, and then you have other sick patients, and it's a thing. And so I remember that early last year, early as a 4, I had this, like, I think this was like a cardiac kid. She was like a 3-month-old kid, and she died. She had only been home for like 3 or 4 weeks. Her mom put her down and she died. And her mom was just like this mess on the floor of the what's it called? Choir. And she's just sitting there, she's a mess. She's a complete mess. And I didn't really know what to say, I didn't know what to do, but I just sat there for I don't know how long with her and just cried and hugged her. And that's the compassion that lives in me because of Lord Jesus. I don't have it on. And so when somebody asks me why, as a doctor, why as a scientist and as a researcher, why I believe in the Lord Jesus, my only answer can be, how can I not? You've heard all the stories in my life, and I haven't even told you, like, I haven't even, that's just the iceberg, There's so much more that God has done. The tip of the iceberg. Not just the whole iceberg, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And so for me, I can't not believe. Living the experiences that I've lived, I can't not believe. It makes me black. And my family and I are growing closer every day because we all love the Lord first, and then we love each other, and we love to serve Him with each other. So, time to get in our families, which nobody did.
Yeah.
But the questions that I wrote for us to ponder about is, what is the most important thing to you? And what is your core, like your driving force? What is that thing that lives inside you that makes you do what you do? And are you using all that you have to pursue that thing? And if you aren't, then what can you do to yourself? Thanks for listening, guys.